Making sure balloonists launch and land safely has been the foremost concern of organizers of the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta. The Fiesta dedicates an entire staff of officials led by the Balloon Meister to evaluate weather conditions, brief pilots, coordinate launches, and handle the throngs of spectators who mingle with balloonists on the field. On the front lines of the safety effort are the launch directors, better known as zebras, who patrol the field during launches.
Launch directors, or zebras as they're better known to the public because of the black and white striped outfits they wear, essentially coordinate the launch. In fact, their motto is a safe, coordinated launch.
I was a launch director. Yeah, they didn't have very many of us, and that was back, I can't remember the name of the field, but we actually ran the entire length of the field. So you got a lot of exercise. It was great.
Once the area is clear, they will give the pilot the thumbs up. And off the pilot goes into the skies. So the job has grown tremendously over the years. Back when I was a launch director, there were maybe 15 or 20 launch directors covering an entire field that was not much smaller than Balloon Fiesta Park is now. Now there are 60 to 70 launch directors, some of whom are what are called zits, or zebras in training.
They got the name zebras. They started putting us in, they wanted something that would be easy for the pilots to see. So we ended up with black and white striped referee jackets and shirts, and the name zebras just kind of followed after that. And there were a few people that started expounding on the uniform in shorts and tights and things like that. So it's become, as long as you can do your job, you can dress however you want with your zebra stripes on. But yeah, it's kind of fun. Got to make it fun because you work your buns off.
And they serve not only as coordinators of the launch, but because they are so visible, they are ambassadors for the Balloon Fiesta. They have to be a repository of knowledge of everything from where the nearest porta potty is to what's the best food on Main Street, because they're going to be asked these questions by the general public. They also perform an important safety function because they all carry radios. So a member of the public can come up to them, or anybody can come up to them, say somebody has had a medical emergency on the field or something. The launch director has a radio, and they can make contact with the Fiesta safety operation, which then can get assistance to that individual.
It's a multifaceted job, and we find lost parents a lot. We end up escorting the kids to the lost parents tent, lost and found tent. And a lot of times there's enough of us out there we can locate kids if a parent comes to us and in a panic. And yeah, so we do a little bit of everything.
Being a zebra can be a head-spinning experience, so Courtney Bueno instituted a training program in the mid-1990s. It's evolved over the years and now includes role-playing to help the launch directors manage their #1 job, getting balloons safely into the air.
We do scenarios of different things because I have done this for a really long time. I've seen quite a bit. And you have pilots that don't want to listen for one reason or another. You have pilots that don't speak English. You have pilots that their way is the only way, even though they're breaking the rules. So you have a little bit of everything.
The launch directors answer to the safety officials, a group of about a dozen veteran pilots.
You hate to use the word police because that's not what we're trying to do. We want to make sure everybody's safe. And it may be anything from moving balloons around before a launch to make sure everybody has enough space, to making sure a fan gets shut off in the middle of inflation when if something happens, or like I say, we're all pilots, so we all have that experience, and we check their balloons to make sure they're airworthy.
At the top of the safety pyramid are the balloonmeister and the assistant balloonmeister, who perform a sometimes exciting and sometimes exhausting job.
So the balloonmeister basically is in charge of all of the flight operations, and the assistant balloonmeister really just, it's kind of a training role to be balloonmeister and also as a backup, and that's the person that kind of the gopher, fight fires, whatever needs to be done, that person does it.
Some 40 years later, Charlotte Kinney, who became the first female balloonmeister in the event's history, still remembers the early morning routine.
Getting up about 4 to talk to the weather guy is how you would start your day. And I know in '81, when I was a solitary balloonmeister, I stayed in a trailer on the field, because getting up, and particularly if you're a girl and have to put your makeup on, and do your hair, it takes a while. It's not like the guys who can go out scruffy and don't care. So by, I think, 5:30, we had to do the pilot briefing. And before that, there was, again, talking to the weather people, figuring out if balloons could fly, what direction they might anticipate going, what the upper winds were going to be like, anything coming in that might affect how the flying events would go for the day, reviewing what the flying events were, talking maybe about what happened the day before. So that was, I think the hardest duties were there in the morning before your brain is working.
Then we head over to the, we call it the launch tower. It's basically about a 30 to 40 foot tall tower at the south end of the field. And you go up on that, and you can see a good chunk of the field. And once the balloons are inflated right in front of you, you can't see anything but those balloons. But you can kind of get an idea of what's going on the whole field. And then we monitor the whole launch from there.
Then once the balloons took off and everybody got off safely, you'd be just kind of hanging around, figuring out, did everybody land safely? Probably doing some interviews, talking to Steve Stucker, talking to various people about what's going on.
Kinney said weather was not always the biggest issue when she served as balloonmeister.
Things have changed a lot in the last 40 years, and for me to tell these guys, these older men and who've been flying for 10 years, what they could and couldn't do was really very difficult, and they really didn't take it very well. They probably still wouldn't take it very well, but but had always been really independent and done a lot of things that a lot of women my age wouldn't have done. So it was hard, but it was like, that's okay,
Of course, launching the balloons is only half the challenge. Making sure they come down safely and in designated areas is the other half. That's where pilots and the ubiquitous chase crews come in.
That's where I kind of started as a balloonist, yes, is working on chase crews, which is the way so many other people start.
I have been on chase crew, yes, since I was 9, and yes, I've been everything from just a passenger in the back of the truck to in charge of the whole crew, or in the 80s, I'm dating myself, my dad and I would go to balloon rallies, just him and I. So I was driving the truck and he was flying the balloon, or vice versa.
Chases all tend to be interesting for a variety of reasons. With a balloon, you never quite know when you take off where you're going to land or who you're going to find there. And one of the really enriching things about ballooning is the places you go and the people you meet that you would never have anticipated or suspected that you would ever encounter. So that's one of the great joys of the sport.
Safe chase is vital. The biggest tip is you have a driver and that is their only job. somebody else in the truck or vehicle should be watching the balloon and telling the driver you need to turn here, and that other somebody should also have the radio, so that if the balloon pilot communicates by radio, they should be controlling the radio, not the driver. The driver should be driving, and that's it. Most pilots will pick their own crew and train their own crew and bring them to Balloon Fiesta. So most pilots, we do have the folks from out of the country that don't have that luxury. So there is a group that does chase crew training and supplies some people. It's all volunteer. They supply people to usually pilots from out of the country.
Chase crew is kind of a unique experience because you can actually be part of a balloon team. You can sign up and be part of a chase crew. And there's no other event that I know of any kind of sporting event. Like, you wouldn't go to the Indianapolis 500 and pick up a pit crew there. So pilots are coming from around the world, but a lot of times they can't afford to bring their crew that, with them from Belgium or from Switzerland or something like that. So they'll come by themselves with their balloon or borrow a balloon, and then they need help. And so you can actually have that opportunity to volunteer for some of these people to go out and be part of the crew. And I think that's a very unique experience. And I know there's a lot of people that, they bond that way. It's like they've got their crew in Albuquerque and they look forward to seeing them. And these people will go visit them in whatever country they live in as well.
From the early years, one of the challenges for pilots was to land in a safe, designated area, avoiding places like Kirtland Air Force Base, for example. But it didn't always work out that way. And as Albuquerque fills in, finding an appropriate landing spot has become trickier.
There was the time very early on before the west side was developed, and a lot of the area out north of I-40 was privately owned ranching country. And there was a sheep herder out there whose job was kind of to guard the property, and he pulled a rifle on us. That was an interesting morning. We finally got the balloon out of there, but it was with a little help from then Mayor Harry Kinney, who himself was a pivotal figure in the Balloon Fiesta for reasons that had nothing to do with calming down sheep herders.
And we've grown. Of course, we now have, early on, the Quad A had people who were concerned about landowner relations. We would land in people's places, they didn't want us to be there. 90% of the people where you landed loved it. And they came out, hey, come and have some coffee, have breakfast, have a beer, if it's late enough in the morning. Let us help you. But if a landowner had just irrigated his alfalfa field and you landed in the middle of it and somebody on your crew cut the fence so you could get in there and screw up his field, that landowner probably was not happy. So early on, Quad A had a group of us who would go out and talk to landowners. I've had several such experiences. And then, of course, the Balloon Fiesta itself, now we have a whole group of people that worry about that.
Aside from the thrill of the chase, one of the perks of being on the chase crew is the possibility that you'll get a balloon ride out of it. But whether or not that's dangled as an incentive, the sight of chase crews careening around the city will remain an integral part of autumn in Albuquerque.
People get excited about balloons. They see it, they chase it, whether they're a member of the crew. They end up going where the balloon lands and get to know the pilot. And that's the camaraderie that goes along with hot air ballooning. I don't think we've ever had problem getting chase crews here in Albuquerque. This is a balloon town, and Albuquerqueans really love ballooning.